What's up, everyone? We are live back with another edition of Unsung Heroes, brought to you by 2-on-1 Fantasy Sports and the Undroppables, where you can find all the amazing exclusive free content that you need to win your fantasy football leagues. And that's why we're here. We're back for week 16, finals week, championship week. Time to take it all home, bring the trophy home, get the bag. It is time. This is everything that we've been working for all season long. Time to win it all. And that's why we're here, myself, Tommy Moe, and Brad Wire, to talk about offensive line and defensive line matchups, our favorite ones, the advantages that we think are going to help you with your start-sit decisions that you need to consider for this week. And so for this week, we brought on a very special guest, the best fantasy football doctor out there, the guy that knows, I don't know, more than anyone else I've ever talked to, and he's not going to go jump in your tweets with random replies of, hey, look at my stuff. He's just an all-around class act, and that's Adam Hutchinson. What's up, Adam? Welcome to Unsung Heroes.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Oh, that was my deep voice. I had to blend in with the enforcers of the Undroppables here. I had to bring it, so I'll try to do my deep impersonation here, so we can have a very manly show here.
That's right.
No, but I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm excited to talk some fantasy football, talk some injuries, and hop right in.
Right on. Yeah, you're rolling with the no net crew today, the unpickables of the Undroppables crew. And before we get any further, I want to make sure that everyone out there knows that an unsung hero is someone who does great deeds but gets little to no recognition for it. And in football, the linemen who battle in the trenches are the unsung heroes that make the biggest impact on the game. And that's why we are here. We're together for D-line and Brad, the king of offensive line rankings. You ready, man? You ready for week 16?
I'm ready, baby. I made, I think, 3 out of 12 or 13 leagues championships. That the sweatshirt that I originally debuted on this was the Dynasty Rewind. I'm in 2 of their listener leagues. I'm in both of those championships.
Nice.
Made my home league, so the other ones, who knows? But as far as week 15, we'll get this thing rolling a little bit. I know it's late here, so week 15 O-line matchups. I had Pittsburgh. I know Tommy had Pittsburgh for his D-line matchups. What a rough game. I can't believe what Pittsburgh did in that one.
Both the Bengals came out hot. They're ready. They're ready to hit somebody.
I don't know. I'm getting a little bit of lag here myself. So they just dismantled them from inside out, it seemed. They brought it on defense. And we both had a shared advantage with the Rams, but both of them, it was too late for a comeback in both those games. So I don't know what was going on, but I said that Pittsburgh kind of got back to Pittsburgh ball, 3 yards in a cloud of dust football, 3 yards in a cloud of snow football. Benny Snell had 18 carries for 84 yards, grinding out a little bit at the end. James Conner was out. I don't know, Adam, what's his outlook look like for this week? James Conner,
he was a late scratch. So with the soft tissue injury, being a late scratch like that, it's tough. For those of you that don't know, he had a quad injury. It was kind of a late addition. Practice reports are going to be really telling this week. As we're recording this Wednesday night, Thursday and Friday are going to be big for James Conner. You want to see him, ideally get at least 1 full practice in, to feel good and kind of clear that injury designation. But if he can compile a couple limited practices, I think you like his chances. But, this is there are different severities of them, as with any soft tissue injury. But this is the injury that's been holding out Christian McCaffrey for a couple of weeks, So it wouldn't be surprising to see James Conner, miss week 16 as well. And I talked about it on our injury tracker on the Undroppables. For whatever reason, and it can be speculated. I won't get into it too much in regards to James Conner, but he seems to struggle with soft tissue injuries, right? I mean, this is a guy that when he has those types of injuries, they tend to be multi-week injuries. So just looking at his track history and taking all that into consideration, I think it's very possible we don't see him week 16.
Speaking of track record, then you said last year we had a bunch of rookies hit that high ankle sprain. That Rams matchup, we had Cam Akers and a few other outside of that matchup hit that high ankle sprain. What is going on? Obviously, I'm sure Cam Akers is out this week, but what about those other two that went down?
Yeah, so I mean, this is tough, getting to the end of the season, and I look at running back specifically dealing with those high ankle sprains because we those guys seem to be the most affected by it. And based on the data that I've collected, it's usually about a 4-week injury for those guys on average. And then when they return, their fantasy production drops off around 3 to 4 points per game on average. Standard deviation we've seen around 10. So it's a wide frame, but you get an idea. These guys could, produce less fantasy points, around 4 to 10 points per game when they return from those high ankle sprains. So Cam Akers, the guy you talked about, high ankle sprain, very unlikely to play this week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a couple of injuries, high ankle sprain, I think, being the most limited. And we know the Chiefs are sitting pretty and poised to make a deep playoff run. So I would definitely not be surprised to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire the rest of the regular season for Kansas City. And then this one hasn't been confirmed yet. I'm going to still keep looking into it, but tweeted about it tonight. Looking at the video, mechanism of injury looked like a high ankle sprain for James Robinson as well. At the very least, I think it's probably the less common eversion ankle sprain, spraining the ligaments on the inside of your ankle. I think he's very unlikely to play this week as well. So 3 big rookie running backs that people were really relying on for fantasy football teams, I think they're not going to have them for their championship matchup in week 16.
And Cam Akers, I don't know, it seemed like he hurt it and then came back for a little bit. He finished with 15 carries for 63 yards. Both Brown and Henderson only had a carry apiece. So you saw Akers getting that workhorse role, but the whole game plan for the Rams seemed kind of off to me. We didn't see a whole lot of play action rollouts. It seemed when I was watching a little bit that McVay wanted Goff to just drop back and try and pick apart the Jets defense, but I don't know. I said they would keep it vanilla, but I didn't think it would just be 4th grade dropbacks and try and go all over the field. Quinn and Williams was in the backfield wreaking havoc until he went out with a neck injury. That's when we saw the run game loosen up a little bit, but like I said, at that point, it was just too late to come back. Tommy, what did you see on the defensive side of that one?
For the Jets or for
for your advantage for the Rams last week?
Oh, that's right. Oh man, I know
we both shat on the Jets, but
yeah. I mean, I think
that's
the fun thing to do is the shit on the Jets this year. It's definitely the team that you're gonna want to automatically start anybody who's playing against the Jets. There's always that team every single year that no matter who's playing them, that's who you want to start up. But it's I didn't see the stats, but the Rams had 2 sacks only. So they were getting some pressure. They were trying to. It was like kind of vanilla all around. I think a lot of people underestimate how decent the Jets actually are. Their win record is terrible, but when it comes to offensive line and defensive line play, they're actually not that bad. And that's why Frank Gore has been decent all year. When it's tough because you automatically think a guy like Aaron Donald is going to wreak havoc stats wise and get a bunch of sacks, but that's not always his game, especially as a defensive tackle. He's not always going to get a bunch of sacks, but he's still going to be effective in slowing down the run. And so it was I didn't see all of that game, but from what I did watch, at least offensively for the Rams, it did seem like they were running a lot of 12 personnel A lot of 2 tight end sets and bringing in Robert Woods as almost like that 3rd tight end, which I don't like seeing. And I talked about that in my under review with Cam Akers. I don't like having him be an inline blocker. It's fine if he's coming in motion and doing a crackback block on somebody, but he basically use him as a 3rd tight end in line and blocking, and I don't really like to see that. And without Cam Akers there, I'm hoping Sean McVay is a little bit back to like his dynamic style of offensive scheme and game plan for this week.
I think with that divisional matchup against the Seahawks, he'll open it up a lot more rather than.
And Adam, I know you're normally focused on fantasy relevant guys, but with Quinn Williams' neck injury, I don't know if you have an update on that or saw anything about that.
I didn't. Do you have any context? Like,
I saw him go to the tent, and a couple minutes after that, he went back out into the locker room. I didn't see a whole lot on it. I just know he was ruled out for the game.
12 hours ago, ESPN, New York Jets, Quinn Williams breakout season ends with injury. So he's done.
Damn.
Yeah, they got him listed as a concussion neck, and he didn't practice today. So, I mean, it's not a surprise to anybody. You don't have to be, a medical personnel that neck injuries are pretty serious, right? I mean, you're gonna make sure that you're 100% if you're going to be going back into a football game or participating in any football activities. So probably a pretty decent or significant neck injury. I mean, I know that there's not much left in the season, but that they've already ruled him out and said, yeah, he's not coming back for the rest of this year. I mean, Jets have nothing to play for, and that's their first round picks from last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember, but they're going to be careful with him.
Yeah, definitely in the concussion protocol, but they do mention the neck injury. They don't really say much else about it. But that's just a big blow for their defensive line. And yeah, like you said, Adam, they don't really have much left to play for, so might as well just shut him down because that's the future right there.
Yeah.
And that's really good for the Browns next week without Wyatt Teller, and they just lost Chris Hubbard. Everyone was starting Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt anyway, but that's wheels up. I mean, he was easily their most explosive player.
Definitely.
Especially the last couple weeks. So my last advantage for last week was San Francisco. I said Jeff Wilson was going to be a top 12 play if Raheem Mostert sat, but Raheem Mostert played and then got himself hurt again. So I kind of lost out on that one a little bit. Obviously, he saved himself a little bit with a touchdown. He's going to be their goal line back. Mostert's on IR. He's done for the rest of the year. So I still like him a lot this week. We saw him get involved a little bit in the passing game. He had 4 targets. He had a goose egg on catches, though, so that one's a little bit tough. What is there any hope for Mostert for next year, Adam, at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mostert, his issue is going to be, do the 49ers pull somebody in? Because this has kind of been the thing for Raheem Mostert. I think his greatest strength is also his greatest weakness. What do they like in that 49ers offense? They like somebody that's going to make one cut and get upfield in that zone blocking scheme, right? They like a fearless runner that doesn't necessarily always see the hole, but has faith in his linemen and, can get vertical up the field. And Raheem Mostert does that, to his credit. But we're seeing a guy that because of that, he's, getting banged up constantly. So I think, I don't want to speculate on this too much because this is not necessarily my forte, but just kind of from a stand back perspective of looking at this 49ers offense. It's clear they want to run the ball. And if they don't have Raheem Mostert consistently kind of for the second year in a row here, do they bring in somebody to kind of help them out? That the Jerick McKinnon experiment was interesting in the beginning of the year, but it's clear that they don't want to use him that way. Tevin Coleman has kind of hit some kind of wall and been supplanted by, Jeff Wilson at this point. I was getting some questions on Twitter about Jeff Wilson also possibly having an ankle injury. I didn't see anything. I went back and reviewed, and then he hasn't been on the injury report for the 49ers the past 2 days, so I would assume he's been a full participant. So I'm not worried about Jeff Wilson heading into Week 16. I think I know some teams out there probably had Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert. It's probably, you don't like to see guys get injured, but probably a relief that Mostert's out at this point because you can start Wilson with confidence and know that he's going to be the guy.
Right.
Yep.
That's the only thing I don't like about that backfield is just there's so many of them. Like, I just don't really want to mess with that. Like in the fantasy, like they're all good. It's just hard to like guess unless someone gets hurt, and then someone else is going to get the lion's share of the carries.
For sure. And again, this is speculating, and I'm not the first person to come up with this, but a kind of dream scenario is, can you imagine if they brought in Travis Etienne next year and him in that offense? That seems like that'd be a match made in heaven with the skill set that he brings to the table. So in that situation, your Raheem Mostert shares in Dynasty would take a colossal blow at that point if they brought in that guy.
Yeah.
So it'll be tough to see. I mean, I think it's a good run organization. I think they're one of those people that they probably adhere to the running back doesn't matter philosophy, and kind of use a lot of guys in committee and don't invest a lot of money in that position, don't invest a lot of draft capital. But, things can always happen in the NFL draft. And if that guy like that slide into you, does Shanahan pull the trigger?
If he's there. Yeah, it's how do you pass up on a talent like that?
Yeah, so that's what it'll come down to, is that they have confidence in Mostert. To this point, I mean, I don't know how you really could, because like I said, he's constantly kind of getting banged up. He's good when he's out there, but he hasn't proven himself to be really durable.
Yeah, that whole offense is by
Definitely
committee.
not. And
they have like all the
moving along.
I'll just make a joke. They have like all the quarterbacks,
all the same
all
type
the
of
running
guys.
backs, all the receivers.
No doubt.
Everyone's
Yeah,
always
they
great.
got to do some soul searching this offseason, because it's obviously been a disappointing season for multiple reasons. But yeah, for whatever reason, the injury bug has definitely bitten them.
Here's actually a question for you related to just like taking care of players and team doctors and the training staff and all that. I have a source that does work with pro athletes, and he has the worst things to say about some of those training staffs, and almost surprisingly, because you would expect them to have the best of the best, but then you see a team like the Niners and they're always having this injury issue almost every single year, especially with their running backs. Have you seen some of a similar thing, or what's your take on some of those guys that are actually in the training room?
Yeah, I think it's tough, because that's obviously a coveted position, to be working with a pro team like that, but it's a grind. I mean, there's a reason that not everyone is jumping at those opportunities, because it's a long season for you as well. I mean, there's a lot of hours. You're not working a normal 40-hour work week. And I think to a certain extent, there's some pro teams that know that a lot of people want those positions. So, it's not particularly advantageous in terms of the compensation that you're going to get. So if you kind of tie some of those things in, because they know they're competitive, hey, if you don't want this job, we'll just find somebody else. Yeah, that'll do it. There's, tons of people jumping at these opportunities. So you take those things into consideration. I could see where that would weigh on some people, but I mean, not in the football world per se, but just coming up from the school and knowing some other people and the Major League Baseball scene and the NBA scene. Those guys are smart. I mean, those guys are good. Like I would be hard pressed, even at the lowest level for whatever reason, to really pass judgments on those medical staffs. Cause if you get a position like that, for the most part, you're tested and you know what you're doing. I mean, injuries happen. Like a lot of research goes into preventative care. But like, again, coming back to the James Robinson injury, if people haven't seen the video I put on Twitter, like James Robinson didn't do anything. Like that injury is a freak thing. Like a guy is collapsing, a 350-pound lineman is collapsing on his ankle, yeah, it's going to give. You know what I mean? It's the path of least resistance. That's not, a knock on the Jacksonville training staff or a knock on James Robinson's preparation. I mean, some of these things are just freak things, especially in football. So it's tough. I think, being able to spot some things and honestly, like a guy that I know that spent some time with the Oklahoma City Thunder and their G League, a pretty close friend of mine, a colleague, basically told me like it's tough during the season because you're just putting out fires all year.
Right.
Not really treating people. You're just trying to like, hey, how can we mitigate pain so you can play and make a living? It's tough. I think it's cool in a lot of aspects, but I don't envy it in some ways because it's a pretty demanding profession.
Yeah. It's just funny too. I think some things like always just scale up, from high school to college to pro, and, playing at a D2 school. Our training staff wasn't that, great because a lot of times just ice it, and 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off. All right, let's see how you go. Jump in the ice bath, do some stem, do some ultrasound, and try to get you just, like you said, just back on the field, and maybe pop a couple Vikes to keep the pain away, just get back out there and play. But it's funny though, because injuries happen, especially offensive defensive line. You see a friendly fire a lot of times with guys, falling on their own players, getting their own players hurt. You just almost expect though, at the pro level, they're just, would have all the best technology, and maybe they still do, but it's just such, a dangerous game that people are just it's going to happen. They get hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in season and off season are two totally different conversations. And
right.
Unfortunately, like, I think a team can help with that, but some of that onus probably goes to the player a little bit. Like, I don't know if you guys saw, like they talked about in season, Russell Wilson talking about his off-season regimen. He invests $1 million into physical therapy care, massage, and it was like nutrition or something, like take care of his body and get ready for the season. So on that level where it's such an individualized care for like him, he's getting like one-on-one treatment with his, physical therapist, massage therapist to say like, hey, we did an assessment. These are things that we think you need to work on. These might be some risk points, boom, 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 and really knock that out during the off season. So, I mean, you hate to put like all the onus on the player, but like if that's your profession, your body is how you make a living. Like, and not everyone has $1 million to blow like Russell Wilson, but to a certain degree, like, I think all those players should be doing that to some aspect. And I think we can say with confidence that some players take their profession a little bit more seriously than others. You know what I mean? And I don't know who those players are, but I mean, I think it's,
I've known some and they hang out, not, ones I've known just hang out. They're not doing a whole lot. So everyone's different, right?
Yeah. You've been such a, freak athlete your entire life and dominated on every single level. It's just kind of like, this is just what I do. I just kind of show up cold on game day and ready to go. So it depends. It depends.
Oh man. So Brad, where did Brad freeze? Oh no. I think Brad oh, there he is.
No,
he's blinking again. I was worried your heart stopped.
He's very
your heart stopped. You had to like
Dude, I messaged you. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with my connection, but Adam's like cutting in and out, and I'm like getting spinning circles on everyone's faces. I'm losing it.
No.
It's my AOL dial-up connection, it's Brad. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I still like the name.
I'm worried it's mine. We just we just installed a new modem router, and I have no idea, man.
We need to up your upload and downloads
bandwidth.
150 minimum, Adam, you missed it. I think it was last week. Was he last week? The week before? He totally he froze and he had to we lost him for a good 2 minutes right at the beginning. But there we go.
He's there.
He's there.
Oh, okay.
He missed you.
We got you, Brad. Got you, buddy.
Okay.
I love live. As I told him, if this was just a podcast, we could cut all this out. We could make all kinds of ups and mistakes. It doesn't matter. But now we're live, so everyone sees it.
We'll do it live.
I'm horrible. This is all on me. Don't put this on them.
The bad part is that you're the talent here, so that's the only thing I'm worried about. You're like the most knowledgeable.
Brad's our Bill O'Reilly. Just we'll do it live, all right? Forget it.
So while we got a little bit of connection here, we've talked about James Robinson a little bit. Brandon Linder was put on IR a couple weeks ago. He missed the last part of week 13. He was out 14 and 15. I'm sure he's going to be out 16. Even if James Robinson is back and playing with his ankle injury, he hasn't done as well the last couple weeks. I think it's partially due to Brandon Linder being out. I'm not comfortable anywhere near starting him, especially if he's got that ankle injury. Andrew Norwell did return week 15 and play 100% of the snaps. I think that's a big part of it that might influence me to start him, but with that, given that I'm kind of out on.
Yeah, and this might be more of a question for Tommy here because you're really good at film grinding, quote unquote. I feel like being a Jacksonville resident, I catch a couple of Jags games, and I like James Robinson. I think James Robinson is awesome. I think there's no questioning his fantasy football production. I feel like if I'm being nitpicky, the one thing that I've noticed about his game is he doesn't have the quickest lateral agility. Some of those outside runs, I feel like he gets kind of caught from behind or has trouble, getting to the block when it's there. And by the time he gets to the hole on the outside, it kind of closes up or the defenders kind of crash on him laterally. Have you seen anything like that in watching James Robinson, or is that just something I'm making up in my head to justify that he might get supplanted or have another running back drafted by the Jags next year?
No, I definitely don't think you're making it up. And while I haven't, done like an under review on James Robinson or really dove into his film, just kind of what I've seen from watching games or catching highlights. I mean, I think that's the reason, one of the reasons why, he was a drafted free agent. There's some holes in his game. I think, he's not I don't want to say he's not a complete running back, but that's what was missing when scouts were looking at him and why, he wasn't he wasn't a draft pick where, a higher draft pick. If, scouts are able to pick out those type of skill sets from guys like DeAndre Swift. And, you can see that on tape. You can see that when you watch them play. So I think I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're making it up. I think that's, that's what's lacking in his game, is that lateral movement. And he, he could improve on that, especially in the offseason, especially kind of taking that role as the RB1, the number one guy, and really honing that part of his craft. But, a lot of his production too is coming off of a decent amount of volume, getting a lot of carries. And I think he's a gamer, he's able to make plays. And I think that's, at the end of the day with football, like that's football. The guy that makes plays is going to be on the field, and that's what he's doing. And I don't think he's doing it in the most sophisticated or, polished way. He's just getting upfield and he's getting yards and he's getting touchdowns. And, that's he's gritty.
He's grinding.
Yep.
He's gonna, that makes sense. Cause I mean, that was the only thing is like my thoughts were, I think the Jags are going to have some overturn in terms of coaching and whatnot. And I think it would be foolish to do so, but I could envision a pathway where a new coaching staff comes in and they're like, hey, this is our scheme. This is our philosophy. Yeah. And if it requires the running back to, do some outside zones or, get lateral quickly and he doesn't fit that mold, I can see a coaching staff being like, man, just, let's get somebody in here. Or let's draft our guy or, get a running back.
Offensive coaches are, to get guys that fit their scheme, and even teams that really do go for a guy like Brad and I talked about Jonathan Taylor. How there's so many times where they're just not running a scheme that fits his playing style, his running style. They're trying to run out of shotgun and do these outside zone runs. And there's times where he needs to be out of I formation or running in between the tackles. And you've seen them progress over the season and start to do that more and start to use him properly for ones that he's more well equipped for. So I guess you would hope, in that kind of situation that James is good enough that they're going to, he's going to find a way to be successful in whatever scheme. But with, like we've seen with undrafted free agents and turnover and coaching staff, I think, that's a great assessment that, while he is really good, for this year, for Dynasty, it's kind of a gamble because you don't know how his future is going to be for the next couple of years.
Fair enough.
One of the that we would have turned, but I don't expect him to get replaced by Swift. He's got a couple problems up front, and they're playing Tampa Bay this week. He just came back, but a couple of his linemen are banged up. Taylor Decker missed practice today with a groin. Big V, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Hal Vitae. He's returning from a concussion. Frank Ragnow obviously fractured his throat, which I still don't know how that is even possible.
That was a new one for me
He
too,
finished the game that he props to him. He finished the game. I don't think he's talked, voiced anything since that game. Crosby, he's still recovering from an ankle injury. Matt Nelson started in front of him. And with the whole their whole team is under COVID case.
So I think where he was going is we were kind of leading up to a Matt Stafford question here, Tommy, if I can. I think with Stafford, we just talked about guys like Raheem Mostert and James Conner that kind of struggle to get healthy. And Matt Stafford seems to be one of those guys where it's like this guy's doubtful to play, he's not practicing all week, and then it's like, boom, he's out there, right? I mean, he's one of those quote-unquote tough guys that we see at the position. I know the Lions don't have anything to play for. It's at the part of the season where we start talking about a lot of teams with that. With the rib injuries, I think Stafford plays. How well he plays, I don't know. They're not going to have Kenny Golladay. I mean, the guy hasn't practiced in forever. And I have literally gone back so many games to try to figure out what the heck happened to Kenny Golladay to kind of figure out, and I can't figure it out. At this point, if I'm speculating, if he's truly injured, it's got to be some type of labral injury in his hip that requires some surgery or something like that. And if he's just kind of milking it and waiting for the offseason so he can get some big money. But that's neither here or there. I think Stafford plays. It's just, he hasn't had many options as Brad pointed out. That O-line's pretty much banged up. So I don't know what confidence you would have in playing Matt Stafford this week, but I think he'll at least be available if you needed him.
I feel like that the Tampa Bay defense is exploitable through the air, not as much on the ground. So I feel like Swift is a big downgrade for me this week. I mean, with the limited options that we've talked about through the injuries, I don't think I think you have to throw him out there based on especially what he's done the last few weeks. He's just as likely as anyone else to fall in for a touchdown. So, but I don't have a whole lot of confidence.
No, I agree. I think you nailed it with Tampa Bay being a little bit more of a pass funnel offense, tougher to run on. But I mean, if you're a team that's had Cam Akers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, James Robinson, Zeke's a guy that we didn't really talk about, Antonio Gibson, Todd Gurley. If you had those guys on your team and you got Swift on there, it's like
I'm starting Swift.
This is my guy.
Yep.
Put him out there.
Yep.
I'm not feeling great about it, but it's better than the others. Yeah.
Yucky. It's either, DeAndre Swift or Dare Gumbawale. You know what I mean? It's like I'm playing Swift.
Oh man, when people were on Dare for like a couple weeks this off season,
That was one of them.
I'm surprised you'd ever root for a Badger.
The analysis made sense. It just didn't work out.
No, I know. Yeah, no, I fell into that whole narrative of like he was James White light in that offense with Tom Brady when he was in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
But that obviously didn't pan out. But we might see it this week. Dare might be a league winner. It's against the Bears, but I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, even just with that Detroit, Tampa Bay matchup, the Bucs were one of my offensive line advantages or defensive line advantages for this week. They're second in adjusted line yards as a defense and fourth in adjusted sack rate. So that defensive line, and I've talked about them a couple times on the show and written about them in Unsung Heroes online. That defensive line is good, and it's been solid all year, and really an unsung hero of that entire team because they don't get a whole lot of love. I mean, they're not Montez Sweat and Chase Young, and they're not Myles Garrett. They're not Aaron Donald, but they've been solid all year. They've been top 5 the entire year. That their position hasn't really moved that much. So, like we said, might have to start Swift based on circumstances, but I wouldn't expect a whole lot from him because it's going to be a tough showing for him this week against that matchup. And so if you're starting Swift, and especially if you're have a potential to get another boom player in your flex, you might want to do it because Swift, might just have like an okay day and maybe fall in for one touchdown, as Brad is saying.
Yeah. I think he gets saved a little bit by his receiving production. Hopefully we see that, just like he's stable 4 or 5 catches that he's had pretty much all season. So hopefully he can get it a little bit going more now that we know Stafford might have to basically create his own offense with Bevel out. So that's whole nother situation for me, to be honest. Another one that's coming back that I kind of like this week going against your Raiders is Myles Gaskin. Gaskin just got activated off the COVID list, and the Raiders are allowing the most rushing scores. So, I don't know. Adam, if you want to talk about the real effect of COVID, we've seen it a little bit with Myles Garrett the last couple of weeks and him being absolutely exhausted. Obviously, it affects everyone differently, but have you seen anything about Myles Gaskin talking about how it's affected him?
I haven't seen anything in particular. I'm not a medical doctor, so some of this stuff is not really my forte, but just, reading some stuff, I think you nailed it. This kind of affects people differently. We've seen a lot of fatigue kind of set in. It seems like maybe not as long lasting, but similar effects to kind of when you come back from having mono and kind of just being exhausted and really being lethargic coming out there. But we've seen other guys that have been on that COVID list that have had COVID and they've come back, and it's like they never missed a snap. The Dolphins backfield has been tough kind of all year. There's been a lot of guys, but they're if you pick the right one, you've kind of reaped some rewards. I mean, if you played Salvon Ahmed last week, that was a great play. So again, we talked about some of those running back injuries. If Gaskin's a guy you've been hoarding, I don't think he's a bad player to kind of plug in your RB2 slot, regardless if he's coming off of COVID, and just kind of hope that you're getting the old Gaskin.
The amount that they lean on their backs, they always seem to feature someone, and Gaskin is looking to be that guy this week. Couple of things for the Dolphins as well is Solomon Kindley left last week's game with a knee and foot injury. It's really too early in the week for me to know his status. Flores said that it's too weak for him to know his status as well. Eric Flowers might come back. He's missed the last 2 games with an ankle injury. I think that's a high one as well, if I remember correctly. So I'm guessing the timetable might be just about right for a return there, which would definitely help if Kinley was going to miss this game. So But one thing is that there's 3 rookies for the Dolphins that have been actually playing really well the last few weeks. Their left tackle, Robert Hunt, and Solomon Kinley have all been playing absolutely much better, just like we saw with the Giants a little bit. And I think that's helped Tua and whoever they insert in that running back 1 slot. So I'm rolling out Gaskin this week with some pretty decent confidence. We've seen them feature that running back position pretty heavily. We know almost everyone else is out on the offense, so that's why I'm. If I had to make a decision between Gaskin and Swift, I'm rolling out Gaskin. I know that's a tough one, but like I said before, Raiders are allowing the most rushing scores, and Swift is going up against a bit tougher matchup. So,
and as I'm a Raiders fan, and yes, you should start Gaskin. I'm starting Gaskin. They're not stopping anybody. I love that team, but they're just a total S show right now, and have like the smallest chance of making the playoffs. And so it is a kind of a must-win game for them. But I don't think they're going to do it. I mean, at this point, I'm just like, let's just lose, get a better draft order, and I've been waiting for Gaskin to come back because this is a perfect week for him.
I know you're like the biggest Gaskin stan, so this is a tough week for you.
6 shares across leagues. I just checked on Analyst Depot, which if you're out there and you're not using Analyst Depot, you're not playing fantasy football right. Analyst Depot is amazing. Go and sign up, get yourself an account. It's free, has great functions and features for you. AnalystDepot.com. Go check it out.
Is there any other injuries you'd like to talk about, Adam, before we get moving on to some other advantages this week?
I got one question. One guy. Is there any chance? Oh, I love how Adam has froze right now with the eyes closed. That's great. We need to get our connection figured out so much better. Hey, there he is. What's up, buddy? One question for you.
Yes.
And it's totally a long shot.
Okay.
Will Joe Mixon play? Will we get one game? One game.
I don't think so. So I think what ended up happening with Joe Mixon is he had a foot injury. They take x-rays on it. Foot bones are really small.
Tiny.
There's a lot of inflammation around there. They miss a fracture. They don't put him on IR. And then they go back and they do an MRI and it shows up that he actually did have a fracture in his foot. And then they end up putting him on IR. And then at this point, I mean, I know they look good against the Steelers, but, you know, this is the part of the year where it's just like, hey, you know, just save him for next year. There's no point. Joe Mixon, before this, I was really pumping him up because he's actually one of the more durable running backs in the league. Like, the dude played all the time. He had a meniscus tear back in 2019, got it scoped, and came back 2 weeks later. Like, that's a really quick turnaround. Usually that would have been like a 4-week turnaround, and he cut it in half. I mean, the dude's been, before this, has been really the epitome of durability. I don't like it based on the reports that we're seeing. I think he probably could, based on, you know, healing times and things like that surrounding his injury. But I think it was just one of those where it's like, we missed this, we put him on IR, now we're going to be super cautious because we missed it. Yeah. And that happens. I know it would be easy to kind of poop on the Bengals and say like, oh my God, how do you miss that? I mean, imaging is not perfect. It tells part of the story. It doesn't tell the whole story.
That's true.
And, you know, like I said, if there's a lot of inflammation in there, it would be, I don't say it would be easy, but it would be very possible to miss that initial fracture. So I think that's what happened with Joe Mixon, unfortunately. And that's why we haven't seen him play.
Damn. Good thing we got IR spots, because he's just been hanging out in my IR spot like all season. But so it's no Joe Mixon, no Antonio Gibson, most likely.
I don't think Antonio Gibson plays, and if he does, we were just talking about like with DeAndre Swift, like if you had him, you got to play him in a tough matchup. Gibson would be a different story for me. I think coming back 2 weeks from a turf toe injury would be really detrimental to his game. I think you could possibly see a limited snap count. If not, limitation in his game. So I'd try to pivot elsewhere where I could, where maybe like I would be starting Myles Gaskin over an Antonio Gibson for people that need an example out there. But it's team dependent. It depends on what you have. Myles Gaskin. Right. I mean, if Antonio Gibson's your only guy and he starts, I think play him, but I think he's a long shot regardless.
And then no James Robinson.
I would be very skeptical. Yeah. And
obviously kind of no CMC.
I don't think he's going to play either. I was hopeful for this week, but yeah. I mean, his timeline, week 16 would make sense coming off that quad injury, but
yeah, it doesn't look good.
You don't know what's going on behind the scenes at this point. If they're, I from reading some stuff, and because I followed him closely this year, because obviously he was the first overall pick for a lot of people. Yeah. I think he wants to play, but whether they allow him to play or not, I think it just really depends.
And then the last one, the fifth one of all those fantastic running backs that you can't probably use this week, Ezekiel Elliott, which isn't really an injury thing, or is it? I mean, he's just not.
So I talked about this last night. I can't help but to wonder if Zeke's been dealing with this for a while, and that's why it's kind of affected his game. Because I mean, Tony Pollard came in this weekend and he had some juice, man. I mean, and I think it's very possible that Zeke's been dealing with this calf injury for a couple weeks, and that's what's really affected his production and his fantasy production, obviously. Calf injuries, athletes usually take, depending on the severity of them, for a minor or moderate calf strain, 14 days usually. So if this is a new injury, I think his probability of playing this week is unlikely. But if this is something that he's been dealing with, and this was just kind of a rest week for him because he hasn't been able to get right, let's get him right for a week and then kind of have him come back and out there and play. I think could see him in week 16.
Man, so that's 5 guys that you really want to rely on that you really can't in week 16 when it really matters. Tough. It's like pivot week. Pivot to Tony Pollard, pivot to Myles Gaskin, cross your fingers and hope it works out.
Pivot to Jeff Wilson.
Oh, man. I don't even know who's the backup for James Robinson. I mean, do you even want to deal with that? I don't think
all right.
Oh, that's right. Oh, God. League winner.
There you go.
We always say start your studs. There was one year when Cam was really dealing with his shoulder at the end of the season. I started Cam over, I don't even know who it was, but it was not a stud, and he ended up putting up like 25 points, and Cam Newton put up like 4 in my championship matchup, and I kicked myself ever since just because I said start your studs, start the guy that got you there. But you really got to look at the injury aspect of these things to get you over that hump. Yeah. And that's why we brought Adam on today is to talk about that. Is yes, start your studs, but if there's an injury lingering, it's a much bigger thing. You always want to get that bag, and Adam's a big part of that. So, of course, we really appreciate you having you on here. And thank you for spending the time and dealing with all the connectivity issues.
I was gonna say no problem, guys. I mean, anytime you guys need me, I'm always happy to hop on and do some stuff. And I love working with the Undroppables guys. So I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
We love working with you, man, and I love seeing you on podcasts. You do a good job.
Appreciate that, man.
Just to wrap it up here a little bit, we'll go through some speed round offensive line, defensive line advantages for this week. I know we've talked quite a bit extensively. Some guys that we have not mentioned yet so far is the Buffalo Bills versus New England. Obviously, we've seen the Patriots get shredded the last couple weeks. Both backs for the Bills get about the same amount of volume. We see Singletary and Moss. Singletary's getting a little more receiving volume, so I like him just to edge out Moss a little bit. But Moss did have 2 touchdowns the last time they played the Patriots. So I think both backs are a decent option for you this week if you need a little bit of a pivot. Just in case, I know in my home league, both backs are on the waiver wire. So you might be able to pick them up if you're in a home league. that's just one of the options that I'm throwing out. Another O-line advantage for me is the Rams, and yes, I am ready to get hurt again. Hopefully they actually feature Darrell Henderson or something. We get an insight on McVay's plan, but I'm definitely throwing Robert Woods out there. Hopefully he gets involved all over the field. And the last one that I like this week is New Orleans against the Vikings on Christmas Day. They get the only Christmas matchup. They get their featured primetime game. I think this is another Latavius Murray game where he can get featured quite a bit. So hopefully he can, both of the backs can get a little run, especially with Taysom Hill out now. So it looks like we got a little bit of a chat here. Arizona or Cleveland defense this week?
Oh, Cleveland. I have both of those defenses in my home league, and I really like Arizona, and I've been telling people to play Arizona, but I'm actually going to start Cleveland this week against the Jets. That's my pick.
Who does Arizona plays San Francisco? And Cleveland, it's Cleveland 100%. Cleveland gets the Jets. That's no doubt for me. Myles Garrett should show up and finally, hopefully, he has his lung back. He's now 3 or 4 weeks back from COVID. Hopefully, he can he's back to game speed playing. He should wreak havoc on the Jets. I'm 100% on Cleveland. That's easy money.
Arizona is playing very well though, and so
they are.
We had Arizona in Kyle Larson's streaming options for this week on the droppables.com. So Arizona was out there for a bunch of fantasy leagues available for pickup. And so if you don't already have Cleveland, Arizona is a fantastic defense to start this week, and they've had the last couple of weeks for them have been really good. They've been playing really well, and I would have all the confidence in the world starting them this week as well. But between those two, it's Cleveland, definitely. To go off of your O-line advantages, Brad, a lot of those I have the same, actually. You mentioned Buffalo. Who's Buffalo playing in? Buffalo's playing the Patriots. One question I've seen a lot this week is, like, should people still start Josh Allen? They're questioning starting Josh Allen. And, besides the whole start your studs, which I pretty much agree on almost all the time. I know it's the Patriots, but the Patriots rush defense, their defensive line is not fantastic. They're bottom of the barrel, or not bottom of the barrel, but they're like 26 in the league in adjusted sack rate. So they're not really getting a lot of pressure on opposing offensive lines. And like you said, Brad, that offensive line for the Bills is really good. So I think all around, go ahead and feel confident starting Josh Allen. Another one
there's not many options I'm throwing out over Josh Allen.
Yeah. And so, seeing a lot of questions. I mean, Jalen Hurts is definitely a good one to consider, but I've seen a lot of people questioning whether to start Josh Allen this week. And that's not a guy that you should sit unless you just happen to have a better option. Then why are you even really questioning it then? Another team I like, Saints as well against Minnesota. That's a great matchup. Saints defense right now, I mean, they're first in adjusted sack rate. They have 40 sacks on the year. Trey Hendrickson was the biggest snub of the Pro Bowl voting, in my opinion. I've talked about him all season long. That guy's fantastic. He definitely deserves it. I just think he's not a sexy pick. The masses, the general public doesn't really know him as much, which is one reason I've been trying to talk about him as much as I have, because people need to know that name, Trey Hendrickson. That guy is fantastic. And so I think that defensive line is going to get after the Vikings a bit. Well, that's all I got. Who's your favorite individual matchup this week, Brad?
Mine it's a guy that you've talked about pretty extensively these last few weeks. Joey Bosa is going up against Garrett Bowles for the Denver Broncos. I'm really looking forward to this one. Like I said, Joey Bosa was a good litmus test for me on Colton Miller. Yeah. And I think because he's just an all-pro player. So I think Garrett Bowles, he's had a good year. Hopefully he finishes out strong against Joey Bosa this week.
Nice. My matchup, and I picked on Mekhi Becton all year long. and he just keeps delivering it. And I think his matchup this weekend against the Browns and Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon on the other side, I think is going to be awesome. And I'm, I think it's this guy's really going to solidify himself as one of the best rookie offensive tackles in the league. This is the last time, the last good matchup of the season that he'll have to do it. And so, I think I just think it'll be a good matchup all around. Myles Garrett is killing it. Still, top 10 in the league in sacks. 5, yeah. He's 5th with 11 sacks this year. So, yeah, it's like I said, with Cleveland getting after the Jets all around, I think that's going to be one matchup where there's definitely an advantage there. And we see Sam Darnold get hit a few times, but Makai's a good offensive tackle, good left tackle, and he'll do his best to protect him. But I mean, that's Myles Garrett, man. That's hard to do.
I love that matchup. That's a huge one. It'll be insane to show just how NFL ready Makai actually is.
I mean, he's been tested all year long too.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like every week there's someone that he's going up against, and he does well. But he's still a rookie, so there's still times where he's going to give up a couple. We got one more question from the YouTubeverse. Jimmy J, Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans, AJ Brown, Marvin Jones, J.K. Dobbins, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. I know who I want, but I want to maybe let our guest Adam take a crack at this one.
Yeah, I'm not benching Justin Jefferson or AJ Brown for anything ever. So those would be my 2 wide receivers, and then I think Mark Ingram was a healthy scratch last week. It seems like Baltimore's kind of pivoting to J.K. Dobbins, so that's who I would flex. I would flex J.K. in that.
Yeah, if this was last year, I mean, Mike Evans, it's so sad. Like Mike Evans still has a talent, but he's just not getting enough volume in that offense, and it's just more sporadic, less consistency this year. He's a great name, a great player, but you need the guy that's going to put up the points this week.
I'm gonna be the contrarian here. Mike Evans against Green Bay had 1 catch for 10 yards, and I think Paulie brought out his receipt for Jair Alexander. That's who AJ Brown gets, I think. So I think AJ Brown gets shut down by Jair Alexander. I'm starting Justin Jefferson. I'm starting Mike Evans. I think he had a pretty good game last week. He had 6 for 110. He gets a Detroit secondary. Obviously, their whole team is beat up. And I like Marvin Jones Jr. as the counterpart to Mike Evans. Yes, they have pivoted to Dobbins, but I don't trust Dobbins as a lead back. They've been using Gus Edwards, and Lamar gets the rushing stats as well. J.K. is just not using the passing game enough for me to feel comfortable starting him over Marvin Jones when Stafford's got very limited targets. So I'll go contrarian, Justin Jefferson, Evans, MJJ.
Well, Jimmy,
I think it's fair.
you got a 2 versus 1 here, so take your pick. I like Adam's picks. I Justin Jefferson is that dude's the man, so I have a hard time with that. Not playing him and AJ, I get it. Last week with the Carolina Panthers going against Zaire Alexander, we still saw DJ Moore kind of get his towards the end, but Robbie Anderson definitely got shut down last week, and I don't think Alexander was exclusive on either receiver, but it definitely wasn't as great of a week for Robbie as it has been in the past. So that's definitely great points. It's just what you want to go for this week.
I just think the way AJ Brown wins is like it doesn't matter. He's great at separating. He's great at yards after the catch. He runs over DBs like like they're not even there. He's a very physical wide receiver. He takes one slant and he makes your fantasy day. Yeah, yep. I mean that's all it takes. Yeah, but I get it. I mean it's. I think we could agree that Alexander's one of, if not the best defensive back in football, and has been detrimental to a lot of fantasy matchups. He's definitely shut a lot of guys down. I just like AJ Brown's game.
And Corey Davis is coming along good enough that you can't just ignore him. You know, so but yeah, it's championship week. You know, you got to make those tough decisions.
For
It's
sure.
one and done. It's this is the last week, and it's for all the marbles. So yeah, that's always hit us up on the Droppable, especially on Twitter. The entire squad is more than willing to help with any start sit questions, give tons of fantasy advice. We love to do it. It's our passion. That's why we're doing it for you, so you can win your championship weeks. And if you've been winning with the Undroppables all year, let us know. Shoot us a tweet, drop a DM, give us a review on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to your podcast. Just go ahead and search the Undroppables, and you'll find any of the 4 great podcasts that we have on the Undroppables Media Network: Unscripted, The Undrafted, and Unmatched. And of course, 2-on-1 Fantasy Sports, bringing you Unsung Heroes. And before we get done with tonight, Adam, thanks again for coming on, man. We really appreciate it. You want to leave our listeners with any last free nuggets for championship week?
I don't have anything that comes to mind. I think we nailed it. I usually in kind of tweeting during the games on some of those injuries, but with week 16, it probably won't be super useful because, like you said, it's one or done. So if a guy gets injured in the game, I'm not going to have a whole lot of insight for the upcoming weeks. But it's been fun. It's been a good fantasy year. Good luck to everyone that's in their championships, and just have fun with it.
Nice. Yeah, and go make sure you go out and follow Adam Hutchinson on Twitter at @therealadam_H. Guy puts out fantastic fantasy football content with the medical spin on it, and or I guess medical fantasy football content with the fantasy football spin on it. That's probably a better way to say that. But yeah, go out. Yeah, whatever works. But go out and subscribe to the Undroppables on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. Follow us on TikTok. We just started that Undroppables TikTok account. That's going to get hot. I got some good stuff in the works for that. And Monkey Knife Fight, our sponsor, Monkey Knife Fight. If you haven't played prop games on Monkey Knife Fight yet, what are you doing? That's the best way to play fantasy nowadays. It's way better than DFS as far as odds of winning, I think. But if you go and you sign up for Monkey Knife Fight, make sure you use the promo code UND to get 100% match on your first deposit of $10 or more, up to $50. So it's just free money. So might as well put our code in there and get some free money on your prop games. And Brad, want to leave us with something else before we take off?
As long as my connection lets me. Like I said before, start your studs as much as you want, but take everything into account. Just don't leave anything on the table. I'd rather have start a stud and him get 5 points than sit him and he gets 30. So you got to take everything into account. At the end of the day, it's all your decisions. And good luck.
Yeah. Right, I agree with that. My last free nugget is, go out there and ask for advice. Acquire as much advice as you can get all the information, data you need to make the right start sit decisions, including asking any of the Undroppable squad. But at the end of the day, it's your team, and you have to go with your gut, and you have to live with your decisions of who you start and who you sat. So at the end of the day, start who you feel the most comfortable with, who you think is going to get you the most points after collecting all the data, after getting everyone's advice. But it's your team. Make the starts that make the most sense for you and that you can live with. Like Brad saying, if that's your stud, you don't want to see him sit on the bench and score 30 points. So, take a breath. Ask the Undroppables. We have loads of free content out there for you to help. Mike Reedy's Untailing the Waiver Wire, Kyle Larson's stream option, everything else that's out there. Go to undroppables.com. All the content's there. Offensive line rankings, our weekly rankings, our dynasty rankings. Just put out a new rookie mock draft for 2021 because we're already ready for the new season. But let's finish this one out good with the Unsung Heroes, the dynamic duo of Tommy and Brad. You can find on Twitter at BradWireFF and myself at 2on1FFB. This has been Unsung Heroes. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.